Hey YouTube, Bruce Wagler in the upstate of South Carolina. I thought I'd go over in this video a little bit of what we do for face frames. If you'll notice, the title of the video is Face Frame in 9 minutes, and it's actually just under 9 minutes. But of course, obviously, I'm running a little fast, so you'll have to take my word on that. Notice I cut my rough cut board, cut it to length, and now I'm cutting it to width on our little contractor saw stop table saw. So right now I'm cutting the 1.5 inch widths. There's two pieces that have 1.5 inch widths, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass a planer, sander. I'm going to rip out my stock and immediately fasten them together into a frame. So now what I'm doing is I'm cutting off just a 1/16 on either side, cutting off one side and then the other, and that takes out all the spring from the grain, and it also makes so I have a piece that is exactly the right width with a very, very minimal saw marks. So I have a perfectly straight piece and very minimal saw marks. Now you notice I just lay them right there on that table, and after a while you'll see me come around and I'll take them right off that table and assemble them on that face frame clamp that I have there. So now I'm cutting a different width, cutting it to length, and I'll set my saw to, first of all, rip it a little bit big, and then, like I said, I take it down just a 1/16 at a time until I get to exactly the right width. Again, that takes out all the spring from the grain, and it also leaves minimal saw marks. And then after the frame is done, I can just take an orbital hand sander and remove all of the saw marks that do happen to remain. And it takes, like I said, very minimal sanding. And so this is the last piece. This is just a 4-piece simple upper cabinet frame. Cabinet shops are pretty notorious. It's pretty well accepted that you use a batch and queue. All your software is set up to cut out an entire kitchen at a time, all the face frame parts, and that's exactly how we used to do it. And I can't imagine, because you cut out a large kitchen, it could be hundreds of parts, and you got to sort them, transport them. It's terribly confusing because, like I said, there's lots and lots of little tiny parts, and just disconnected processes, and it's just can really be a nightmare. So this, notice I'm using them right off of the table, right where I set them when I got done finishing them. Simply walk around the table, and you have my Craig jig there in the corner. Pocket hole them right away, and proceed with the assembly of the frame. Like I said, this is a very simple frame. But the point is that any little bit more of a complicated frame takes as much time as it needs, and there's no process that take a certain amount of time. You only spend as much time on a process as you need for that individual frame. And the other thing with cutting out lots of face frame stock is that you actually have quite a bit more waste, because say you have 1.5 inch widths, 2-inch widths, and 3.5 inch widths. And each of those widths of stock you have to cut out quite a bit more than you need, because when you go to cut it to length, you have to have plenty of each of those widths so that you can get all of your pieces out of the stock that you cut. And that just just goes to show that when you disconnect the processes, when you overproduce, You have that disconnect process. You just have unbelievable amounts of waste, and like what I'm doing here, everything that I didn't use for this frame is still sitting over there on that blue cart, and it's you know, very flexible. It's still in its raw form, and it can be used for anything at this point. Whereas, you know, if you cut out too much stock, then you know, its use is very limited, and a lot of it ends up being thrown away and burned or whatever. But everything that's over there on that card is still, it's a little bit shorter, but it's still in its original form, and it can be used for, like I said, has a lot more use. And there's the frame. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate y'all's support for my last video. Hope y'all enjoyed this one as well.